The business environment. This is a second of a series of flipped business studies 3 videos. At the end of this presentation, you should understand the external influences on businesses and internal influences on businesses. If a business can respond positively to internal and external environmental factors, then it can achieve its aims and to be profitable. Let's look at the external influences on businesses first. They include economic, financial, social, legal, political, institutional, technological, competitive situation, and changes to the market. Let's look at each one of these in turn. Economic influences on a business relate directly to the economic environment, which is dependent on the changes in economic growth. For example, other factors could be the change in the Australian dollar. Changes to the global and domestic financial markets will influence the cost of borrowing and therefore directly affect the level of investment by business, which is directly related to the amount of interest they have to pay. Geographic. Two major geographical factors that affect a business activity are: first, Australia's geographical location with the Australian Pacific region. This is the Asian century. The impact of globalisation, which is a process of people, money, goods and ideas moving around the world. We now operate in an increasingly global marketplace. Social and democratic. Democratic factors such as age, sex, income, cultural background and family have a profound effect on business activity. Social influences such as changes to fashions, culture, have the capacity to affect business sales and profits. Legal factors. Legal influences are the regulation, the legal framework if you like, within which in the business must operate. Federal, state, government, local council regulation, commonly referred to as red tape. As society becomes more complex, the more laws and regulations are introduced which businesses have to deal with, and therefore increasing the cost of doing business. Political. Political influences are derived from both state and federal government policies, which include taxation and the implementation of paid parental leave, for example, amongst many others. It can lead to changed circumstances and some business uncertainty. Some decisions are made to suit political ends and not made for social or for economic needs. Now, there are many institutions that businesses have to deal with. Institutions that influence businesses include government, regulatory bodies, and other groups such as trade unions and employer associations. Some examples include regulatory bodies like the Department of Environment, the Office of Fair Trading, employee trade associations, trade unions, and the Australian Stock Exchange. Look on page 62 for more examples. And of course we've got technological influences. Technological influences can increase business productivity and communication. We are in the digital age. For example, robots in the Holden plant in Adelaide and the opportunities presented by the NBN for data communications in Tasmania are two good examples. Now let's have a look at the competitive situation influences. Now these relate directly to other businesses who compete with our business. The things that can include competitive factors are the ease of entry into the market. So the easier it is to enter into the market, the quicker that we might have competitors competing against our businesses. For example, a web making business, you don't need much to get into business, and that can be set up quickly. Local and foreign competition that sell under the same market. Variables that influence whether businesses will compete in that market will depend on labour costs, transport costs, costs of raw material, and the value of the Australian dollar. Marketing strategies employed by competitors. This will depend on the size of the market, the size of the business, and the nature of the product. And of course, the number of competitors in the marketplace. The more competitors, the more competition, the better utilisation of resources, and the more cutthroat it will be. So therefore prices will be down. One such example is the electronic retail industry. And markets. These can include changes in financial markets, as what happened in the global financial crisis, where the cost of getting finance has increased, and that's certainly the case today. The interest rate has increased, or is higher than it used to be. Changes in the labour market, how people are employed and paid. Recently we had the Fair Work Australia Act, which has changed the way that people are employed, and the balance between the balance of power between the employers and the employees have changed. Changes in consumer markets have been dramatic, with a rapid change in lifestyle facilitated by improved technologies and communications. Now what I'd like you to do is to check your understanding. First of all, the external environments. This is on page 9, question 1 and 2. And external influences, page 69 to 70, page 6, 7, questions 6, 7 and 12. Also, under competitive influences, there's an important section there, page 70, question 13, 16 and 17. So please pause. You may need to replay so you can consolidate your understanding by doing those questions. Now, the most important factor that we must examine in more detail now is the economic influence. Now, we must be able to work out the breadth of the economic cycle, or the economic cycle itself. What it does, it measures economic activity over time. So output is the amount of goods and services produced in a whole economy over a period of time. When economic activity increases, we have an upturn leading to a boom. So in this time, there's lots of money in the economy, people are spending lots, unemployment is low, and inflationary pressures tend to be higher. When we talk about a downturn, like we're experiencing in Australia at the moment, there's less economic activity, there's more unemployment and lower inflation. Let's have a look at the economic cycle in detail. We'll start with the boom end of the cycle. So this is an upswing where there's increased profits for businesses, and as I said before, there's more income in the economy. So there's obviously rising economic growth. There's more economic output. We have falling unemployment. As there are more demand for goods and services, firms need more people to work for them, and therefore the unemployment queues drop. The level of spending increases in the economy. Just imagine if people are now off the dole queues, they're now earning more money, they've got more disposable income, therefore the demand for goods and services increase, i.e. the spending on goods and services increase. We have increased production levels. There's increased demand for goods and services. It means that businesses have increased orders and therefore increased production, and for the increased production they obviously need more labour, and so on. One downside of this scenario is that we have rising inflation. So inflation is the measure of rising prices, and that is an economic ill, if you like. Businesses like to have predictable economic situations, but in rising inflation the levels of return in the future can be less certain. Now let's have a look at the recessionary cycle. So that's when the economic cycle goes down. We have rising unemployment. So at the moment, in our manufacturing sector, for example, we've had the pressures of the high dollar and decreasing economic activity, which has led to people being laid off in our manufacturing sector. That's just one example. People get laid off and spending decreases. When the economy goes down, people tend to worry about the future, and they tend to save a bit more, and their discretionary spending or spending on luxury items tends to decrease as well. Because of that, there's decreased profits for businesses. So in leaner times, businesses have to make decisions to cut costs. That's my next point. So when the economy goes down, the orders aren't coming in, demand isn't there, businesses have to cut costs, and in some instances, unfortunately, they have to let go of some of their staff, which is my next point. In extreme circumstances, the workforce may need to be cut costs to maintain profitability, and that's a really difficult thing to do. Now, having looked at all that, I want you to please check your understanding. It's on page 69 and 70. In particular, there's just one question there. Question 4 I'd like you to do, please. So pause it now, consolidate your understanding, and then once you're finished, go forward to the next section. Now that's all of the external influences. Let's have a look at the internal influences. First of all, the product that we sell. The type and range of products and services produced. The type of businesses, service, retail or manufacturer. And also the size of the business. Bigger businesses offer a larger range that employ more sophisticated technology. Management. That's an important one. Rapid advances in technology and increased global competition have resulted in businesses flattening their management structures, therefore having fewer levels of management. So that means that there's more collaboration amongst managers and employees, a bigger sense of ownership, and therefore if you are empowered, if you like, you become more productive, innovative, and you work better in a team. Decision making is decentralized, so you are making more decisions. It is more people oriented, democratic, and performance based. Resource management, how all resources are managed. I'll have a section on that later. And also, the business culture of a business is very important. It can be seen in unwritten or informal rules that guide people into how the organisation behaves. The values, ideas and beliefs shared by all managers and employees of the business. And that's really hard to get across, especially when you want to change a business culture. It's very difficult to change the way that people work within a business or any organisation. These beliefs are expressed in policies, goals and slogans of a business. Location. Very important part of any business. What are some location factors? Visibility. You may want to locate in a prime shopping area to get more people to come past, or in the CBD. The downside of being in a CBD is its cost. Right? You get more people coming past, but the cost of rent is therefore higher. Therefore, you might want to go to a suburban shopping centre, which is close to traffic and parking, which are also two important factors of location. You want to be close to your suppliers, or that is an issue for some businesses. Of course, the cost of transport for raw materials and supplies can be high. But these days, most people tend to use freighting from overseas for online supplies and so forth. You obviously need to be close to your customers. In an online sense, it doesn't matter, but if you've got a shop front, it's important to obviously have your location where most of your type of customers that you've identified that you want to sell to can come to. And also, proximity to support services like accountants and agencies can be a factor when you're locating your business. Now let's have a look at business resources. There's 4 different types. Human resources, the employees of a business. And in one sense, they are regarded as the most important resource that any business has. Informational resources, the knowledge and data required by business such as market research, sales reports, economic forecasts, and technical advice and technical know-how. They're the sorts of things that make up informational resources. And in today's society, in today's business environment, they're very, very important. Physical resources includes equipment, machinery, raw materials, computers, and such things. And of course the financial resources. Where's all the money coming from? How's it being generated? So the funds necessary for business to run and meet its obligations, to pay its bills in the short term. That's extremely important. Now I'd like you to check your understanding on internal influences of business. So that's on page 81. And what I'd like you to do is to do questions 1, 2, 3 and 5. And as well as that, it will be very useful for you to complete a mind map of internal influences. And pause here, make sure you understand those things before you go on to the next section. Now that we've looked at external influences and internal influences, I'd like to go and have a look at the stakeholders. They're the people or groups that interact with the business and have a vested interest in its activities. Many businesses are sensitive to the public opinion, especially in the media environment, and want to be seen to be good corporate citizens. All businesses must attempt to fulfill their responsibilities to their stakeholders. Businesses may have many stakeholders with varying and sometimes conflicting interests. Let's look at the first one, society and the general public. The society expects businesses to be good corporate citizens and give back something to the community. It's not all about profits. Society expects businesses to adopt ecologically sustainable operating practices. For example, looking after the environment. The second group is the shareholders, the owners of the company. They're the ones that are putting the money at risk, so therefore they expect to be looked after with a reasonable rate of return. The environment, as I mentioned before. There's a growing pressure for businesses to adopt ecologically sustainable practices to meet the needs of the present population without impacting on future generations to meet their needs. This means that consumers would be more readily to purchase goods and services from businesses that meet their concerns about carbon pollution, for example, and destruction of native forests. Employees, as I've already said, they are the most important resource to a business. Employers expect a safe and psychologically rewarding work environment. That includes the elimination of discrimination based on gender, marital status and race. So these days we've seen shifts in that area where it's more easy for women to take leave when they have children, for example. And also policies against sexual harassment and equality of promotion are important issues. Customers, where would the business be without them? They're the lifeblood of the business. Customers expect businesses to behave ethically. Businesses that respect and satisfy their customers have a much greater chance of success. And of course, if they continue to do that, customers will come back. Today's consumers are better educated and informed, especially with social media and so on. Another important stakeholder are managers. They expect the confidence and support of senior executives, and they're responsible to manage the business the best way they can. Okay, now again it's time to check your understanding to do with stakeholders. This is again on page 86, and I'd like you to complete questions 1, 2, 5, 6 and 7. And as well as that, I want you to do question 10, which is a table, summarise the main stakeholders with their interests, which is really a summary of what I've been talking to you about, and as well as that, a mind map for a similar purpose. So thank you for listening. I hope you've got something out of it, and it's either useful to you now or maybe later on when you revise for this section. So good luck.